My name's Mike. People know me by Mikey. We do Mikey the Big Collectibles. Um, we do lots of card shows, setups. Actually started hosting our own card show earlier this year for our first time. Yeah, just a lifelong sports fan and turned collector. I've been collecting on and off since probably I'd have to imagine late 80s. Was in it hot and heavy for probably 10 years. We all grow up, we get into that teenage aspect of things, and we go other ways, and really didn't get back into it again until maybe the last 5 or 6 years. So I had a big gap there. And it's probably even still to this day. I don't know how many of his rookie cards I've picked up. I'll pick them up at the show every time I see him, even though I probably got, 10 to 15 of each one already, is Chipper Jones. Okay. Chipper was kind of like one of my first, like, collectible, and I mean, I started following the Braves in 91, so he came around 92, 93. So, I pick up Maddox too, but Maddox, being in the Cubs isn't quite the same as seeing it in the Braves uniform to begin with. One of the first ones. So I was telling Murph earlier, this was probably my first card that I spent, big money on to me at the time. But we went to Disney, and one of the card shops in Disney had it was a Steve Avery autographed card. At the time he was, this was probably 92, 93, so he was behind Glavine and Maddox and Smoltz, and I thought he'd be the next one coming up, and that's, that was just no, that was $75. That's still in my collection today.
Now,
but
when did you buy that?
I bought that probably 93, 94, somewhere around there. Yeah, I was probably 12, 13 at the time, and well, you're in Disney, you always have extra spending money. This one here. So this one was, we call him our mascot. He goes show to show with us. Mm-hmm. This was my first ever graded card I had that my wife actually picked up for me.
Oh, wow.
And just because he's a local boy, Rocco Baldelli, it's a high school Bishop Hendricken card. It's just something you don't see. I thought it was so cool, and we actually did a show up in Woonsocket, and must have had 5 or 6 people come up and try to buy it from me, and I can't let it go. I think it probably means more just having it in my collection. These all came off the wall that's behind my desk, so. I think for me, it's seeing the kids. That's what's going to keep this hobby going down the road is the kids. So when I see a kid, like a lot of people, like we're very organized when we do a show. If you've come to our table, we have every sport, every team is organized. Some guys are broken up special. So when I see a kid come up and he can dig for his favorite player and he can pull out a couple of common cards, and they may be cheap cards, and most of the time I might give them to the kid, just because we got to keep it going.
All right, well, I just noticed that my microphone was off, so I'll try to chop it up and make it work as it is. But you were luckily able to hear Mikey. That's more important than hearing me. You don't need to hear me with the background. Okay, yeah, great. You don't need to hear that stuff. His mic was still working, so that's all that matters. But no, I completely agree with you when it comes to the kids, because like yourself, I was a young boy. I was young Murph, going to card shops and shows, and you only have so much money to spend. You're trying to stretch it as far as you can,
Yep.
And you always appreciate the gimmies and the gifts, and you hope that kind of gets returned down the road eventually. Maybe when those kids are older, they give a kid a pack or a kid a card, and I think that's super important as the kids, because they are the future, just like society. The kids are the future, and I think being able to return the favor, to let the kids kind of have their moment, and hopefully that gets returned into a future moment, when they pass it on, I think is so important.
I mean, that dollar card sitting in my common box compared to a kid with a smile on his face. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
What's more important, right? The dollar or the smile on the kid's
Yeah,
face?
exactly.
I mean, let's ask the flippers. What's more important, the dollar or the smile on the kid's face? I'll let you guys decide that one. But no, I completely agree with you. The smile is, I mean, the margin on dollar boxes or just value boxes in general are there that we're not going to lose sleep over it.
No.
So obviously we're going to make our own on it, or we hope to. but it's the smile, them walking away. They're all excited and giddy. I mean, you don't forget that, and that's really, really important for this hobby. So, talk about kids getting excited. What gets you excited for card shows? Is it the prep? Is it the during? Obviously, it's not the after breaking down. That sucks. But what excites you?
I guess it's the fact you never know what you're gonna see show to show. Mm-hmm. Some shows are small, some shows are bigger, but depending on who, we try to set up with different people, and a lot of the shows we do will have some of the same vendors that we become friendly with, and you see these friendly faces, and like I said, it's hey, what does this person have in their case? Oh, I've never seen these people set it before. What do they have?
Yeah.
And, Sunday at the show in Raynham, the guy across from us had a Steph Curry rookie card sitting there. I kept staring at it.
Uh-oh.
Ended up going. Somebody a couple tables down bought it. Okay. $300. It was a little out of my range, but it was cool because there's not many of that Steph rookie cards.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you. Show to show is completely different. And me as a vendor, I always bring different stuff show to show because I want to have that level of excitement be different for people. I don't want them to go to show expect, all right, there's going to be Joe Burrow rookies, there's going to be Wemby rookies everywhere. I want them to expect the unexpected, at least at my table, and I'm sure it's very similar to you. And I think I try to bring excitement and feed it to, the people walking the show and have them be excited. And I think if that chain can keep going and going and going, to more and more people, I think that makes card shows healthier. And that actually segues into my next question. What's something you wish you could change about card shows? Is it the show itself, fellow vendors, the attendees, days, times? What would you improve? Now, you're a show promoter, so you could kind of, really play with this.
Which I've kind of already done with doing ours. But one of the big things that some people do and some people don't is the promotion end of it. Mm-hmm. Some shows, it's the same show every month. It's the same day. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And that might work for some shows. Other shows, it could be the night of the week it's on that just doesn't help it. We've done a midweek show and it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
And it just, for us, maybe for other people, it just...
Show to show. I mean, next month it could have been great for you and sucked for the next person. It's totally different. Yeah.
Some of the vendors, it's just a matter of changing up what they... some people, show to show, that same card is going to be in the same case, in the same spot, for the same price that it's been for 10 years now, almost,
I said months, you said years. Whoa.
It's true.
Tell me how you really feel.
We try to get a little bit of everything, and I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes you just don't have a lot of time in between shows, or you get tired, you get burnt out, and you go almost on autopilot for the next show, and you just... Hey, all the stuff went away. You haven't touched it since the last show, and you just drag it out, and you put the same stuff out, and you're like,
"That'll do."
Yeah.
I get caught up with it, especially like I'll set up at shows, whether it's like Mohegan in Connecticut or like Shriners in Wilmington. It's like two different people, groups of people, 3 hours away. It's like, well, didn't sell here. New group of people there, so it's new stuff to them. It should sell there. I get caught up in that too, and it's. Yeah. Some of it's laziness, some of it's, burnout. But
only so much time. I mean,
exactly. I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. You gotta sleep for a little bit of it. But I want to pinpoint something you said is you try to carry a little bit of everything. And I try to do that the same myself here at the shop, at least, with at least bargain boxes of wrestling and, and soccer, which I don't really traditionally sell a lot of, boxes of. Do you find yourself struggling to sell this or that because you're so spread out thin in terms of your inventory, comparatively speaking, if you just focused on football or just focused on basketball or whatever it is?
I think one of the biggest things would be maybe not having the higher end cards or the nicer cards. Mm-hmm. Maybe I have a couple boxes of common cards for some of those other sports. Mm-hmm. For us, basketball, hockey really don't do a lot with, even though it's as popular as basketball is. Personally, I'm a baseball football guy. Yeah. So I always find myself, if I'm opening something, I always kind of roll back and then, let me open baseball as I did tonight. And
it's funny because I try to do the same thing, when it comes to the singles again, and I dabbled with it when it comes to the boxes, and it just, quickly or sometimes, slower than others. But you get to a point where it's like, this doesn't sell. And no matter what show you go to or where you're at or who you see, it just does not sell. And it's a pain in the ass to move on from it to fund other stuff like that. And I try to tell people, like, be different at shows. Like, you see Joe Burrows and Wemby rookies, but you don't see Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering or One Piece. So how can you be different and focus on that? But a lot of people focus on what we see all the time, and that is football, and that is basketball, and that is baseball. So, like, I mean, for you carry a lot of stuff. You got 3 tables, and you got to fill it all up. And
Depending on the show.
Yeah, that's true, but you can only put so much football stuff out.
Exactly.
So you kind of, I don't want to. It doesn't. It's coming off bad, but you kind of back yourself in a corner where you have to carry a lot of stuff. But you do it for good reasons.
Yeah, and we've had shows, and I think the Crown Jewel show was one of them, where we had people come back up to us afterwards. We were the only ones that had soccer, singles, or sealed wax, wrestling, soccer, or sealed wax, which is actually getting very popular too.
Agreed.
Or even hockey, which we don't. We talked about it earlier. Hockey's just one of those things that
It just doesn't sell.
if you don't carry it, somebody asks for it. But if you have it, nobody asks for it.
I couldn't agree more. It's crazy.
So, everybody had baseball, football, basketball.
Yep.
But, when they did their loop and they came back around, they bought a blaster from us, or they bought, they dug through our singles boxes and found some of their stuff. And, that might not be 2 3-row boxes like I have for baseball. Maybe it's 1 shoe box, but it's still something.
And I feel like having those niche sports, your soccer, your UFCs, your wrestling, even hockey, F1, it's like it's important because you show to show, you don't know who's looking for it, and you can't carry the big end or the high end stuff. Of course not. You don't want to, suck up that much money into a certain thing and then sell and sit there. But again, just a splash of something, because you go to a lot of local shows, specifically your 35 table shows. Chances are they probably don't have any of that stuff. Whereas you're the one guy that's like, for me at least, a Shriner show. It's a vintage sport heavy show. I like to carry Pokemon because I'm probably one of the only few people that does. So therefore, if you want it, you got to get it from me. So that's kind of like my process. Do you go through those processes, or do you just kind of bring everything you can?
So, I mean, probably the first time we set up at a show, we might bring everything.
Yep.
If we do a show again, we're like, all right, well, this worked, or, or we'll ask around and be like, hey, what does usually get sold at this show? Oh, well, if it's very, TCG heavy or something like that, like, all right, cool. So maybe my sports stuff will do good. And, always try to change it up and try to tailor it towards, whatever show you're doing.
Now, do you tinker with your setup from show to show? Like
hour to hour during the show. Like,
really? That often, huh?
I don't... I like to joke with people, my brain never shuts off, so
I get that.
I'll set up the table, or I'll have my son help set up the table, or my wife, and they do their best, but it's just I'll walk by and I'll move stuff, or hey, we're a couple hours in, this stuff hasn't moved yet. Let's try to move it to a different spot on the table. Maybe
make it look different.
Maybe it's a different eye level thing, and yeah, we'll change stuff. Like I said, even hour to hour during the show, just to try to
make something different. Yeah, the showcases sometimes, if a card's sitting there for like 2 months or whatever, I'll put it in a different spot to make it psychologically seem like it's brand new, or I've never seen it before, because some people just don't see things. But if you move it around, you'll be like, oh, this looks different. Oh, I never noticed that there.
Yeah,
even though
you've had it
it's been there the whole time.
Yeah, maybe you've had it in the front row and you can't see it, or maybe it's been in the back corner. So, hey, let's throw this one in the center this time and see if...
There's a science behind it, a psychological, but also like a mathematical science behind it. Is the card show's best place to make deals, whether you're buying or selling, do you think?
Depends on the show. I mean, I think some of the card shows, there's almost too much going on, so you really can't concentrate on making your deals and stuff. There's really is, in like my shoes, because I don't have a shop like you do, there's 3 options for us to move stuff. You've got card shows, you have eBay, which we all have a love-hate relationship with eBay, and Whatnot, which I haven't done in. I guess you could throw Facebook Marketplace in there too, but that's bad.
Terrible.
So I guess it's a way to try to move different stuff, but I don't know.
I agree with you. It depends on the show. I notice that your bigger shows, if it's a whiff in terms of attendance and it's slow, then you might be able to have that more time to make deals with certain people. Your local shows, if it's slow, you have that time. And if a local show has good foot traffic, then it's going to be extremely hectic and you're going to be kind of all over the place. I guess no matter the show or size of the show, if it's slower, you have that more one-on-one kind of basis. When I was doing trade nights here, people liked it when there was less people here, so they could focus more on you and the next person and the next person. Whereas me, I wanted 45 people in the shop at all times because I want to see the volume of deals. But it can be kind of overwhelming. I completely agree with you.
The last trade night I just did at Baseball Cards of RI, I showed up there probably half hour into it, and I couldn't even find a spot to sit. So I just kind of stayed back until it opened up a little bit, and then I finally found a spot on a table and made some deals. But I just kind of let people do their thing, and
that's it.
I know we have difference of opinions on
we do
dealing at shows. If you're set up at the shows, you like to buy.
Oh yes.
I am usually not a buyer at the shows. I don't know why. Maybe it's just I don't know.
Well, I don't want to say I like buying when I set up at shows, but I find myself doing it because you can use that vendor claim. It's like, oh, I got to be at it at a certain percentage point.
Yeah.
But like when I set up at shows, when I go to shows, whether I'm set up or not, I'm trying to buy. But when I'm set up, there's the additional portion of, hey, I'm bringing stuff to sell because I don't want to just go over with an empty table and just try to sell up, just to buy.
Yeah, and you've got an avenue to move the stuff after you pick it up. And that works. For me, we have a hard time. Well, it's that $50 threshold. Yep. If I have a card that's over $50, it's going to sit in my case. It doesn't move.
50, huh?
I don't know what it is.
I'm the same way.
No matter what, maybe it's not having those high-end, one-on-ones or those high-end case hits that...
Those are the ones that sit the longest, though.
Yeah.
I mean, let's ask ourselves this. If you're going to go to a shop or a show or whatever, and you see a $50 card or a $500 card, what are you more likely to buy? Just in a vacuum.
Yeah.
The $50 card.
$50 card.
Exactly. So, let's have a Josh Allen numbered whatever, $50, and a Josh Allen numbered to whatever, $500 card. What are you more likely going to buy? The $50 card. So, for me, I used to say, that threshold for me, anything over, $250 was, a no-go.
Yeah.
Now it's even lower because people are being more financially smarter with the cards that they sell because we're just in a different era right now.
Yeah.
We're transitioning to a different era. And I agree with you. It's now only almost anything under $100 because people are being more savvy with their money to buy seemingly more for their collections nowadays than they are out and about flipping because it's hard to flip a $50 card. You might be able to do it, within a week, but you can't really invest in a $50 card because there's just the margins aren't there for it. How do you handle, and I already kind of alluded to this about slow shows and such, but how do you handle when you're set up and the show is slow? You said you don't buy, so you can't use that as a perk to be like, oh, well, it's slow for you today. You want any sales here? Here's 40%.
Yeah.
But as someone who sells a lot of things, how do you kind of manage that?
See, and that's one of the things I got to get better at. We always go in with, hey, you never want to go in hoping for a slow show, or thinking that it's going to be slow, But, hey, if it's slow today because, whatever's going on, whether it's weather or whether...
Pat's on at one.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're like, all right, well, let me bring soft sleeves and top loaders, or I got a stack of cards here I got to go through in price, and, let me fill it with busy time. And I never do.
So what do you find yourself doing then instead of busy work?
Bullshitting.
Hey, I haven't seen you in a while.
I mean,
just kind of chit-chatting. Yeah.
Usually if we're slow, people will still come by and it'll, pick up a blaster of this or do, something that's always kind of keeping things going. Even if it is a slower show, usually it's the other dealers that'll come by and, hey, I'm slow. Let me open something because I'm bored,
Yeah, no, I get I oftentimes find myself in that predicament. I was just in that predicament at Shriners. I'm like, oh, it's slow. I saw some nice leaf cards. Let me open a leaf box. It's hard to stay busy at shows when they're slow because you can only do so much. You can only price so much. You can only rip so much. You can only talk so much. So you got to try to figure out how to work. And shows are long, especially the slow shows. They are brutally long.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's take a good pause here. Let's take a look at a couple other cards here that you have. Pick the next one. Any of them.
Well, I brought this one in to tease you a little bit, and I kind of joked and said, "Well, you put up a post the other day with some Alabama cards, and I looked on my wall and I saw one sitting there, and eventually, probably when we end up cutting him or something like that, you'll get it at a bargain." But it was a Brian Robinson.
So these are mine.
Yeah,
and I'll show you. Can I see yours?
Yeah.
So these two are mine. These are the ones that I just posted. And this kind of gave him the idea to bring in his. Now, I want
that
his.
Reese's patch is awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Makes me a little hungry. Now, this is the one that he brought in. Bowl game patch. You can see the 2 from the year 2023 on it. Or, no, 2022, excuse me.
Yep.
On-card auto. And then on the back, I hate this inverted thing. Where's the number? It is on this side right there.
Yep.
8 of 10, which is not a collegiate jersey number match because his number was 4 at Bama, but a NFL jersey number match because he's number 8 with the Washington, not Redskins, but Commanders. Not football team, but Commanders.
Still weird.
Is it? It must be for you. Really, especially when you're getting used to the football team. All right, I can get used to it. Nope, Commanders.
I didn't even have anything that said football team on. I just skipped that whole era.
But no. So how'd you get your hands on that one?
That one I actually got in I got that one in a break.
Really?
Yep. That was probably a box of NT, and just ended up with the serial number and got lucky. And
I mean, it's a pretty beautiful card.
Like I said, that's one of those ones that just goes in the collection. And
we could make more history and make a purchase on the show right now by selling it to me right now. He might get cut next year.
He could.
He might, he could go to jail just like a lot of NFL players, find their way in criminal trouble, and it could be worthless.
And then you could have it cheap.
Exactly. Or I could, or you can make out right now and have some good money. All right. Would you have 2 more that we haven't seen yet? Let's just show the other 2.
All right. So the next one has a little bit of history to me. So this was probably an early purchase for me.
Little Mikey purchase?
Little Mikey. There used to be a little shop in Coventry right in front of the Stop and Shop, this little small shop. And this was purchased for $12.
So here's the original One Touch. I don't know who keeps original One Touches like this. But
well, the only reason I still have it is we just sent it to get graded about 3 months ago. So it actually just came back.
Fairly recent.
Yeah, maybe a couple weeks ago.
$199 out of $299. It's got the original top seal too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's not the card. This is the card. Look at that. Sean T. Gold X-Fractor. Beautiful rookie card of Sean Taylor. Died way too soon.
Yep.
Actually, it's 139. What does it say? Does it say 139? This says 199. But actually, it's numbered to 139.
Yeah.
So that's a one-touch error. I'm trying to get the glare. There it is. Beautiful card. Oh, this way. Now, why is this card special?
I think it's just because it was one of those early purchases. Same thing, one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was almost out of collecting at that time. So to have cards at that era, I didn't have much in that mid-2000s. It was, hey, let me pick up a couple from players and a couple, I wasn't opening a lot of stuff. So with him being one of my favorite players, my son's middle name is actually Sean after Sean Taylor.
That's pretty funny.
Which my wife let me do.
Very sweet. Let me guess. She picked the first name and you got the middle name.
We each had the 2 names, and we actually kind of had the chance to go. He's Alexander Sean. And Sean Alexander just made me think of the football player. So I was like, yeah, let's go the other way.
Roll Tide.
So
that's funny. And then the last one.
And the last one, because I am a wrestling fan, and another guy who has gone way too soon. You don't see much of his autographs. And this is a Bray Wyatt on-card.
The glare is a little tough, but beautiful on-card auto. You can actually read his name, which a lot of cards can't do nowadays. You can't read their autographs. There's the label. Undisputed autographs. Cool set.
And that one just came back from grading probably 6 months or so ago.
Very cool.
It's been sitting in a One Touch on the shelf, and I'm like, you know what?
Where's that One Touch?
Oh, I didn't keep
No, we're not keeping One Touch.
It didn't have the top sticker and everything like this one did,
That's
you know?
Fair. That is very fair. That is very fair. All right. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about today? All right. So we've talked about a bunch of stuff. We talked about early collecting, current collecting. We talked about selling, setting up at shows and such like that. But let's talk about your show. Now, this is a great opportunity for you to plug your own show, but I also want to pick your brain because not only are you a vendor, but you are a show promoter. So how did that idea start? Like, what made you wake up one day? I'm gonna run a show. How'd we get there?
Well, like I said, my brain never shuts off, so I'm always running, always trying to, try to make what makes you you, what makes you unique. So we do all sorts of shows. We like some stuff that some shows do. We like some stuff that other shows do, and we're like, you know what? We have this idea. We like this, and let's throw it together and let's make our own show.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started our business, we came up with the name kind of like quickly when we came up with the Mikey the Big, and one of the names that kind of bounced around because I'm a construction worker was which we ended up naming the show was the On the Level Card Show, which kind of has a double meaning to it, on the level because of the construction end, but the fact that I think we're pretty straightforward, pretty fair, and I feel like just from what we had from attendants and vendors, and I think people think the same thing of us too. So
that's awesome. It's really awesome and humble because I feel like a lot of show promoters run shows, and I'm sure we can kind of think of a few that just do it for the money, and that's not the reason to do it. And I don't think that's the reason you do it.
Nope.
But you did mention that you take the good from this and the good from that. What's the bad from this and that you want to avoid? Obviously, bad vendors and stuff like that. You want to try to keep the table cost down. But was there something that I cannot do that at my show?
One of the big things was the lack of promotion.
You hit a home run with the promotion. Let me tell you.
I was gonna say I would imagine that even if you didn't collect cards, you probably saw whether it was a Facebook ad or a flyer,
something
somewhere. I mean, between Coventry, West Greenwich, Exeter, we had stuff North Kingston. They were plastered everywhere, and such a shout out to all the places that let us put stuff up. Because me and my wife both grew up Exeter West Greenwich. We both graduated Exeter West Greenwich, so there's
sweethearts, high school sweethearts.
Friends in high school, right afterwards. So.
Gotcha.
We didn't, there's not much out that way.
Yeah.
So when we picked our location, we're like, hey, listen, there's not much out that way. There's no shows. There's no shops. And we need to find a spot that's convenient off the highway. So when everybody was like, oh my God, West Greenwich, that's so far out.
Yeah.
It was literally a minute off the highway.
I don't even think not even.
Yeah.
I think I could see the highway from the parking lot.
Pretty much. So that was, when we picked it, we're like, let's try it here, and that's kind of an idea to start with. And we had 34 tables, which was very aggressive for the space that we had.
I thought you were gonna say it was aggressive for our first show. I'm like, that's a good local show, but for this, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
we ended up for the next show, we ended up having to cut 2 more tables because it was just we were just too big. It was trying to squeeze too much in together, But we ended up with 125, 130 people through the door for a first-time show. I thought that was really good, and that made me feel good,
Now, there's a lot there that I want to kind of bite at. Circling back to the promotion, which you see very little shows promote to the level that you do. I mean, I think the only other one might be Scott with the Mohegan show, but that's just a massive show. So he has to.
He has to draw the crowd.
And being a new show, you should promote. Now, do you have to? No, you don't have to, but you should. And I think that's something you, again, hit a home run on. And a lot of local shows specifically, you don't see that level of promotion, or if any at all, with the exception of a few Facebook posts. But if you don't have Facebook or you're not in that group, then you're not going to see it. So my question to you is, do you think the promotion was worth it? Now, you don't have to get into the numbers, but was it worth it? Because you did a lot of promotion.
We did do a lot of promotion. Every vendor I talked to, so I went back up to everybody at the end of it and thanked them first.
That's important.
We don't make the show without them.
Yeah.
So I thanked them. I checked with them. And I checked with them a couple days later. Now that you had, how did you do? What'd you think? Stuff like that. Almost everybody said that they did really good.
That's awesome.
So if they're doing good, that means that whatever I did for promotion was worth it.
Yeah.
As the first show, we went into it, and I said, you know what? Let's break even.
That was the goal.
That was
break
the goal.
Even.
So whatever we got for table cost covered our table rental, the venue rental, the promotion, and that was it. Whatever we made for ourselves out of the show only came through the admission.
That's good.
Everything else went back into the show.
And I think one thing, and you mentioned this to me, and I wasn't even aware of it until I got to the show, was you had to rent the tables. Now, a lot of venues, the tables come with it, so that took a lot of change out of the potential profit, which again, you're not doing it for, so it doesn't matter. But still, it's a hassle because the tables were late, and that was like one of the problems you ran into, which... Looking back, because it was a successful show, you can laugh at. But if the show was
at the time, it was not laughing.
I bet you weren't. I'd be punching a hole in the wall too. But like, if it wasn't a successful show, that would obviously hinder, wanting to do the show again, which you are doing, and we'll get into. But do you see the show moving forward into maybe a different space, a bigger space, or a space that has tables?
Well, I mean, they had tables. My biggest thing was I wanted 8-foot tables.
And they only had 6.
They had 6s and they had rounds.
I remember you saying that.
So I think they had 10 8-foot tables, and then we had to rent the rest. So going into a show, I wanted 8-foot tables. I think if I'm paying for the table, I want the space, and maybe it costs me having an extra 5 vendors.
Yeah.
But if you got 8-foot tables, then everybody can have their space,
maximize
their space. Yeah. If you set up with 2 showcases on a 6-foot table, what do you got left? 2 feet in the middle?
If that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so, those cases are big.
That was our goal, is like, listen, I want to do 8-foot tables.
So do you, now I know that the next show is in the same spot, correct? Mm-hmm. Now, do you see potentially moving? Do you see growth in the future, in size, kind of what's the future look like maybe this time next year?
Yeah. So we looked at, going, a big show, and I think I stressed her out a little bit, and she kind of, the wife was like, "Hey, let's start small first."
Yeah, that's smart.
I'd love to do a big, whole collectible show. We see TCG shows, we see retro toys and video games and stuff like that. We see sports shows, but we don't have a, you got Comic-Con, which is its own thing, but I'd love to see a collectible con, or whatever you want to call it.
Would this be different than the show that you just ran, or would it be the same thing? 'Cause you said big show, so when I hear big, I'm thinking 100 tables.
Yeah, so it would be, whether we call it an on-the-level super show or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
One of the spots we looked at, and it was just whether or not it was worth it to drive out there, was Wide World of Sports in North Kingston.
I've heard about that. Oh, North Kingston. I'm thinking of the one in Woonsocket. There's another one in North Smithfield, I think it is.
And then you got Teamworks in West Warwick, too. So we just did a show for Northeast Card Expo down in Stanford.
Oh, yes.
And it was this place, Chelsea Athletic Piers, and we were set up on the soccer field, which I thought was such a cool thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? I could see us doing a whole big 150 table show, mixed collectibles, whether something like that could work.
And that's kind of where you take I like this is good about that show, and you formulate and you put your own spin to it. You obviously ditch the bad from whatever you think was bad of the show, and you make it your own. Obviously, you don't want to jump too deep into the water, bite off more than you can chew. But talk to me about this next show, because it's in January, I believe, correct? So fill me in and fill everyone on the next show coming up.
So we just signed with the Elks Club. It will be Saturday this time, but it's Saturday, January 25th, 2025, which is still weird to say already.
Oh, gosh. Crazy.
Same time, 9 to 2. No matter what, I will have my tables Friday night.
Fingers crossed this time.
No. I will have my table
confirmed.
Friday night. No matter
Absolutely confirmed.
I will not be going through that again. So we're looking at 32 tables. So far, out of the vendors that I've reached out, I've gotten back in touch with me so far, I'm already over 20 of the ones that were there the first time.
That's awesome. Back. That's 2/3. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's not getting in touch with, probably the other group. I just haven't seen them yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so far, nobody's been like, no, I'm good, I'm not coming back.
Yeah, no, that's tremendously awesome. And it's good because, in my opinion, from my point of view, and maybe people listening, I consider that growth, because you might have had to, scrape and try to just, hey, can you please set up at the show? It'd be worth it, I promise. It's a new show, and it takes a lot to get vendors for the first show. But once you get the first show, it should be, I don't want to say easy, but getting 20 plus vendors to come back, I think is really, really important, because now that's almost like one less thing you have to worry about. And the table situation already solved, but let's say another situation comes up. At least you won't have to worry about filling in the last 3-4 tables of the show, because you already have majority of your vendors. Yep. What's something that you could maybe tell us about the show that maybe we don't already know? Because when I walked in the first time, I didn't expect a couple packs to be a giveaway. That was really cool, and you don't see that at a lot of shows. Is there anything like that, or something that maybe you can peel back and let us know, a month and a half ahead of time?
Yeah, so at the time we did the first one, it was the end of September, so we had out all those Halloween packs and stuff like that. So the Pokemon, we were able to do something for the kids, and it was something we want to, like we talked about, the kids are what makes it, and we want to help keep the hobby going, and you're always trying to figure out what different little thing you can do to keep everybody interested. So one of the other things we did was, and it came together kind of late, but we did do a food drive. So
that's pretty cool.
We did it for Project Hand Up the first time, because they were hurting. They had nothing in their pantries, so
that sucks.
We ended up, bringing a few full boxes of stuff that they picked up, day of the show, which worked out awesome. They were so happy and thankful.
Yeah.
We will be doing another food drive this time. I'm not sure exactly what for yet. But when we did it last time, it was, hey, you bring anything, it's $1 off your admission.
I was about to say,
and that cut into our own profit, but we did not care for that. We like to. We're all about helping out and giving back, and however we can do it and make it work. It
almost seems like you have a sense of community and hobby kind of perspective to your endeavors in this space, which a lot of people don't have. Those that are listening, hopefully, you have a more of a hobby collectors community centric focus. But if you're a flipper, then you won't care. You just care about what you can buy and sell the cards for. But I mean, it's great to hear that kind of stuff, because I was thinking to myself as you were saying that, I'm like, well, you bring a can or two, maybe you get free admission, but $1 off is perfect. Obviously, if I was just bring a can, it's a huge chunk out of the profit margin that's coming off. But no, that's really awesome. A lot of shows don't do that. How did you? I know you mentioned that they were kind of just like struggling or whatever, but like, what made you think of that? Like, what? Like this is a great way to help them out. How'd you get to that point?
So, my wife, she saw it that week on Facebook that they were, looking for help. They're out of West Warwick, which is, just a couple towns over. And we reached out to them and said, hey, listen, we've got an event coming up. We figured that we'd have at least 50, 75, you never know how many people. You hope. You
just hope like 10 people show up.
Maybe we can do something to help. And,
we
were able to help. And that made
awesome.
us feel good. And I'm glad everybody that, brought stuff and helped out too. That was awesome. And I appreciate that too. And
I was going to say, they must have been very appreciative of that.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm sure you were very appreciative of everyone that showed up and all the vendors that showed up and hearing such great feedback. And looking back at it, you can kind of rest easy a little bit, looking back at the last show, but gearing up for the next show. I'm sure some of those nerves and maybe a little anxieties maybe filling in. During the show, once the tables was settled, vendors were set up, show started. What was how were you feeling then? Were you still nervous?
I don't think I even went and sat at my own table. I ended up walking around, talking to people, checking on people. One of the things we did with, we had so much money put aside for promotions. So between, the advertising and everything else. So I ended up walking around. I had some money in my pocket that was left over, and I'd look at, maybe there'd be a father-son at a table, and they'd be looking at a card and, back and forth on it, whether or not, and say the dealer was at 20, they were at 10, and I'd say, here's the extra 10, make the deal happen.
Yeah,
it works out for our dealers.
Yep.
And the kid and the father will remember that
moment. Yeah. How? Because again, so many people are just money greedy in this hobby. How are you? Because you're such a nice guy. Obviously, that's just the simple answer. But how are you able, as a show promoter and as obviously having a side business into this stuff, how are you able to just, here's $10. That's coming right out of my pocket. That's coming out of like my margins. Like, is it just like who you are? Is it how you were raised? Did you grow into this kind of person? Because there's just not that many good people like you in this hobby. And I'm being honest too.
It's probably a little bit of everything. I mean, it's one of the things is trying to set a good example for our son. Like, hey, we got to do good things, volunteer and stuff like that. And, if we can help out, whether it was the food drive or, like I said, little things like that, like walking up and, the mom and kid, and they're looking at a pack over here, but then she's like, and they walk away, and I walk up behind them, I buy the pack, I walk over, I give it to the kid.
There you go.
Like, just little things like that you hope that they come back.
And you hope that it goes a long way. Just like giving the kid, we talked about earlier, like the dollar card or whatever.
Yeah.
It's nothing to you, but it's everything to them. And, obviously, having a full-time job and doing this, $5-10 ultimately is really not much to us, but
we waste $20 on stupid shit all the time.
Exactly. I mean, we spend money on worse things. Yeah. So, no, I couldn't agree more. But I hope that show promoters kind of get a sense of how to run a show. I'm not going to say right, because there's a million one ways to do things the right way. There's a few wrong ways, but like helping out the community, checking in on vendors, picking up $5 or $10, in a deal, whatever. It's just like little things like that to really make an imprint, especially for a new show, first time show. Moving forward, I think is really impactful and really helpful. So that's just incredibly awesome.
And every show does their own thing, whether it's, a giveaway every couple of hours, whether it's, signed autograph, there's always
something.
You hope most of them do. I mean, probably 50%, 75,
Is that a good percentage? I don't know. I mean, they'd be in the Hall of Fame if they were.
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking through the different shows that we've done, and, some of the bigger shows, they might have a free autograph signing that maybe a local.
Some guys just bored on a Saturday or Sunday.
Hey, you want to come down and sign autographs?
Sure. Yeah.
No,
that's awesome. No, and as you mentioned, you can see yourself 100, 150. Maybe you get to that point where you're giving out free autographs. by having like a D Brown or whatever. There. Everyone loves. Or what's the other guys? The Dana Barros there. He's another popular one that likes to pop up at shows in the area. No, that's pretty cool. All right, we talked about a bunch of stuff today. We talked about growing up, collecting, vending, setting up shows. As we wrap up this episode, I'm going to ask a couple more personal questions again about you and your endeavors. What's a piece of advice you would give someone getting into the hobby or looking to get into the hobby? I don't know if I should. It's expensive. You hear all this bad stuff. Blah, 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 blah. What's one piece of advice? Listen, this is what I'm telling you. Do it. In a good way.
If you're just trying to get into the hobby now, don't do it just to make money.
I love that.
Do it to collect who you like. You may like, there may be a cool card that maybe it's a $5 card. Mm-hmm. Maybe it means the world to you because it's something different. It's such a cool card, like it doesn't have to be those top dollar cards. Because
agreed.
You can look at one of those top dollar cards and 6 months from now, it's half the price. Say that $2 card drops half the price. You're like, oh, all right, you know what? That $1,000 card drops half the price.
Sweating.
Yeah. and if it's going in your own personal collection, everybody wants graded stuff. It doesn't have to be graded. I graded my, the Taylor to protect it, just so I know nothing happens to it, but everybody that comes up to the tables wants graded stuff, and it, take your chance. Sometimes you buy something, and if you want to grade it yourself. If it's worth that $20 to you to
get it graded
and just protect it, do that yourself.
I like to think that there's still room in this hobby to grow, and there is, and there's room in almost anything for it to grow, especially positively. But we're at a point in the hobby where it's transitioning back to what it was. Maybe not financially, but where we're becoming more collector focused. Now, is there room for another company to kind of come in? Is there room for another platform to come in? Sure. But I think the day and the age of people coming in just to make money are almost gone, because I feel like all that space has been taken up by breakers, by flippers, by repackers, exactly. Yep. So to have that collector's mindset is so important, because what is a hobby? It's meant to have fun, and you collect, and you got to spend money in any hobby for that matter. So no, I'm glad you really mentioned that, because I feel like I'm a beaten horse when I say focus on collecting. If you make money along the way, that's great, but collect. Buy
the cards you want. Yeah. Don't be buying a $300 box just trying to pull a card to make you money. It's not going to say it's never going to work out, but
what are the chances, right? I tell people all the time, I'm like, whatever the price tag is, regardless, $20 box, $300 box, $3,000 box. You got to be able to afford it and be able to live with getting nothing back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can make half your money back, whether it's on the $2,000, $300, or $3,000 box, that's a win. And
fun.
the other half is supposed to be fun.
Yep.
And that's how I try to portray. Oh, I don't want to just have fun. I want to get the $1,000 car. Well, let's just go buy it at that point. Just buy it. Seriously.
Instead, you're 5 hobby boxes deep, and you spent more than
what the card's actually worth. Especially 3 months from now, it's probably worth 50% less than whatever it was at that time. But collecting is so important, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one that preaches that. For someone who might be nervous about going to their first show, all right, I just got into the hobby. I bought a few cards online. Time to go to a show. I want to go. I want to feel the hobby, but I'm nervous. What's a reason to just get up and go? Tricky question. Isn't it?
I was gonna say, I guess just to go see what it's about.
Yeah.
Check out a small show. Most of your small shows are going to be anywhere from free to $5 to get in, just to walk around and see what's there, and do your loop first.
Yeah.
You'll see people that'll stop at the first table and
spend all their money.
But maybe you get to the other side, and maybe somebody's got that same card for cheaper, or somebody's got something different that you're like, oh, I wish I had that instead. Just take the plunge and see what's there.
I like that. It may seem like a wild, very bizarre concept, but I try to tell people, go there, look at some cards, have fun.
Yeah.
As simple as it is, but it seems like a bizarre concept to a lot of people, but just go and have fun. You don't even have to buy anything. Look at some cool cards, pen through a couple boxes. Maybe you buy a blaster box or whatever, and just go and immerse yourself, expose yourself a little bit to the environment. Maybe it's a busy show and it might be a little too hectic. Or maybe it's slow and you can meet and talk to people. Maybe you're able to sell a couple cards. Who knows?
We just went down and visited you down at EC3.
Yeah.
And for me, that was so weird being on the other side of the table. I can't tell you the last show or how long it's been since I've walked a show and not been set up at a show.
How did it feel? Besides weird, was it like, oh,
different?
What am I doing over here?
Yeah,
a little foreign.
And for me, it was an awesome show. Very busy.
That's good.
Foot traffic,
crazy.
I would have rather been on the other side of the table.
I told you then. I'm like, just throw your name on the wait list because
I did.
Good.
We talked to Scott on the way out, and then we
good. Because a lot of people don't sell wax at the show, and I mentioned this to you before. So just to kind of translate the conversation here to the podcast is like, you'll find a lot of people there are flippers. They buy stuff at the stores, or they maybe have a shop.
Boxes.
Oh my god. Anyways, the jumbo downtowns that'll be worth like $10 in like a year from now. But it's a great show. I think it's very hobby centric at the show, and of course you're gonna find a couple other people that like to do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But there's room at that show for someone like you who does sports, who does do Pokemon, who does do the boxes, who does do the sealed product. Because a lot of people just sell the $1,000 cards, the $400, $500 boxes, and like I said, as long as you can have good price points, you'll do well. Yeah. It's not that hard.
We kind of check off all the boxes. We kind of
I
would say a one-stop shop, but we bring everything with us, but it feels like it sometimes.
And I tell people all the time who like, I'm setting up my first show, like I'm a little nervous. I'm like, just be different. Be different. Again, you can find 1,000 Joe Burrow base rookie cards.
All those Wemby.
Everywhere. But what makes you different? Is it your wrestling selection? Is it your F1 selection? Is it that or whatever? Is it a variety of everything? One-stop shop, whatever it may be. Just be different. Be yourself, which obviously you have a personality, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then throw a few flyers for your own show while you're there. And advertise for yourself.
We always try to throw out flyers for whatever shows we get coming up. We try to help promote for,
community focused. Crazy.
It only helps us in the long run too, right?
Agreed. Couldn't agree more.
If I can't help draw to another show, how am I going to draw to my own show?
There you go. Everyone should want to help each other.
You should be sharing the post. You should be doing everything trying to help bring people to, even if it's a show you're not going to go to, even if it's
just like and share. That's it.
Go check out this show. Hey, we got friends set up at this show. Go check them out.
It again. It feels like I'm being a dead horse here, but it seems like it's a rocket science type concept to be a nice guy, or just to be a community focused kind of a guy. if you could go back in time, this is the last question, and I appreciate your time, obviously, and I appreciate everyone watching and listening. Hopefully you're learning a thing or two, or you're excited for the next show coming up, or your future hobby endeavors. But if you could go back in time, little Mikey, or maybe just a novice self, just getting back into the hobby, what's one piece of advice that you would give yourself that you now know now, but you'd give that to yourself, your younger self?
So when you sent me this one yesterday, I sat through, I looked at it a little bit, and I'm like, all right, so most of my collection early on was 87 to
93.
92, 93. I wish I would have stayed in a little bit more. I wish at that time, Pokemon, Magic, get into these couple of bums, Brady and LeBron, that probably made some good money on some cards there that, I never got into any of that stuff. I missed that section. Pujols, Ichiro, like a lot of that stuff,
Late 90s, early 2000s kind of a guy.
Yeah. Well, the Jeter stuff, I had already stopped at that point. So
a lot of people did. You're not the only one, so don't feel bad.
Yeah.
But what's that advice?
Just keep collecting.
Keep collecting.
Yeah, don't stop.
And I see a lot of people phase out of the hobby, whether it's because they lost too much money or they just lost love for it. Don't fire sale your stuff.
Yeah.
Unless you can't pay your mortgage or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't get rid of it. Just put it in your closet. You'll come back around to it. I already know a couple other people that are coming back around to it because, I don't know, maybe down the road it actually has more value or it gains the value back.
You dig through, you see what you got. We all put stuff away. I open up a lot of rookie stuff, pro debut, the Stars and Stripes stuff we were talking about earlier. It's, even the Bowman stuff, baseball-wise. It's stuff you put away for 2-3 years. You sell those top prospects, and then you wait to see what else is in there,
And the worst case, you have a little bit of fun along the way. You dig it out once a year. You reminisce. It's nostalgic. You laugh a little bit.
Oh, crap. He was in that set,
Exactly. I mean, you got a story to tell. Like, I bought this for $1,000. Now it's only like $200. Ha. It's just silly stuff like that. No, it's crazy how many people get out of the hobby because of money. More often than not, it's because of money. And then
because they went too deep.
Exactly. They lost track of fun. But anything else you want to add as we wrap up this episode of Early Morning Setup? Anything you want to add that we didn't talk about?
I know we kind of touched on
everything.
Probably everything. We don't. We do everything. We've kind of haven't really found our spot yet, but we between shows and between selling and starting our own show and it's still kind of throwing that wide net. Just like when we go to a show, we set up with everything and it's just trying to make good and trying to meet cool people and fun people, and we always have great conversations every time we meet up, and that's what this I've got friends that we've met just from doing the card shows.
I couldn't agree.
And they're in my phone as Wrestling Dave, or
or whoever that.
Yeah.
Now, I guess one last question. I should have asked this earlier. Do you think you're doing too much? The amount of tables, the boxes, the singles, the card show now, the promoting, obviously raising a family, working full time.
Yeah.
Do you think it's too much?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It's tough because we always, depending on the time of year too, but, if I'm not out at a show that week, I feel like I'm losing out on money.
Interesting.
I feel like I'm not making a chance to, to sell inventory and to try to help people out. So some shows, I gotta cut myself back sometimes. I gotta limit and be like, hey, all right, 2 or 3 shows a month or whatever it may be. We had, some like this Saturday coming up. By the time you hear this, it'll already be past. But we've got 2 shows on the same day.
Ooh.
So my wife and my son are going to one show.
Oh, wow.
We've got friends that help out, that they're going to help me at another show, and this will be the second time we've done this.
That happened to me, too. Mrs. Murph had a setup at the Quincy show for me, and I was like, just bring stuff, give away, advertise, that's it. Don't focus on selling, no nothing. And I went to the Mohegan show, I believe it was, and I did all the selling and stuff like that, and she had fun. I mean, it was a little overwhelming for her, but she had fun with it. Yeah. But, no, I mean, having that supporting cast, I mean, as I'm quickly knowing, I've had, and obviously you have it, too, is crucially important. So you avoid burnout, which we kind of talked about too.
Yep.
But no, that's awesome. As long as you don't feel like you're doing too much, keep going with what you're doing, because obviously you're doing something very well. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And hopefully we were able to talk about everything that we needed to talk about, and I think that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, I feel like we touched we touched on everything.
Everything. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening and watching to this episode of Early Morning Setup, a card show podcast. Thank you so much. Please smash the thumbs up button. Comment down below any follow-up questions, any thoughts, comments, concerns. Maybe you agree with something that we said, or maybe you disagree with something that we said. I'd love to hear about it down below in the comment section. And of course, subscribe to the channel, check out the membership program. But that will do it for this episode. Again, a great conversation, goes by extremely quickly. But I'm going to queue up an excellent video right here. I'm actually going to cover my face because I'm on that side of the screen. Hopefully you guys click on that one, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, see you guys later.